Hey, Taylor Wood here, and welcome to today's episode of The Men's Mysteries. I'm going to share with you the importance of saying no to protect your inner peace, and why that ability to say no will actually help you out in the long run when it comes to handling your anxiety. Because here's what I found. Over the years of being a people-pleasing, codependent, nice guy who felt a lot of anxiety, a lot of that anxiety was manufactured plainly and simply by not being able to say no to other people. In fact, I would say no to myself a lot of the time while I was saying yes to everyone else. And this is the trap that I see a lot of men fall into. Someone comes along and says, "Hey, I want you to stay late at work tonight, or I want you to put in a few extra hours." And the thought that goes through the anxious man's mind is, if I don't say yes, I could lose this job. If I don't say yes, I'm going to have to, I'm going to make someone else unhappy. So what do? They say yes. Or your partner comes to you and says, I want you to go do this activity with me. And you say, you don't want to do it, but you say yes. You say yes to make him or her happy. And as a result, what ends up happening is you resent that person. But the truth of the matter is you didn't say no because you thought you needed their approval more than your own. And a lot of the resentment you're feeling is actually turned inward, but you're expressing it outward because of the fact that that person is reminding you of the fact that you said yes to them when you could have said no and could have honored and protected yourself. So I find that for a lot of men, it's actually really hard to say no. This is a real challenge. And really, this isn't any different from what happens when people in general say no. What I find is that it comes out sideways. It comes out in the form of self-sabotage. So a man will say yes to something, but then find ways to basically undermine what he said yes to. He'll find reasons to go against his yes because he didn't really want to anyway. Or he'll end up undermining himself at his job, his relationship, or whatever it is, because deep down inside, he said yes to something he didn't want. And he said it for the wrong reasons instead of just being honest and saying, no, I can't work those extra hours, or no, I don't want to go do that activity, or no, I need to actually take care of myself in this way. The other thing I find that is really relevant to all of this is that a lot of times men will say yes because they feel like they have to say yes, and that if they say no and they choose themselves, that they'll get abandoned. I've been that guy where I've said yes to something because I didn't want to get abandoned by the person that I was with. What I didn't realize was that in abandoning myself by saying yes to someone else, I was already setting things up so that I would be abandoned by that person. Because on some level, that person is going to know that you don't really want to do what you've said yes to. And that causes them to lose respect for you. Think about it. You here you are, you're saying yes to something, and somebody can tell on an energetic level, on a deep inner level, they can tell that you've said yes to something that you didn't really want to say yes to. They feel it, and it causes them to feel repulsed. It repels them. They cringe. On some level, they lose respect for you because you haven't respected yourself. Learning to say no to other people is a practice. It takes skills. One of the things that I do when I work with men around learning how to say no is I first of all, I tell them that their no is sacred. Your no is sacred. You have the right to say no, just like other people have the right to say no. We all have the right to say no, and our no's are sacred. They're as sacred as our yes. And the other thing I suggest is start saying no to low impact things like small requests. So if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, can I bum a cigarette from you?" Say no. Say it for the sake of saying no. You might not even have cigarettes on you, or maybe you do. I don't know. But say no for the sake of saying no, and for that, and for being able to stand in your power of being able to say no. And be clear, like this isn't you being a dick or being mean or being cruel or anything else. This is about you asserting yourself and honoring your no. And a lot of times we need to learn how to do that through repeated practice, small steps. One of the philosophies that I employ with my work with men is a philosophy called Kaizen. And Kaizen is all about small steps. We make small choices each day to create the big changes that we want. So if I say no to something small, something easy to say no to, what it's really doing is it's giving me a rep. It's teaching me how to do something that I'm not comfortable with. And if I find that by saying no to somebody, it actually helps me to get a little bit better at asserting myself. Oh, the next time I say no, it's going to be easier. Or the next time I need to speak up about something in general, it's going to be easier. This is really important because if we don't learn how to say no to other people, those other people will take advantage of us. And not even because they even mean to, they'll take advantage of us because we allow it. And so another thing that I tell my clients is that what you allow, you are responsible for. And what that really means is that if I've said something and I've allowed something to occur, even though I didn't want it to happen, I wasn't like fully on board, but I've allowed it to occur. I'm responsible for the fact that I allowed it to occur. That doesn't change the fact that the other person is responsible for their words and their actions and things like that. But if I've allowed someone, as an example, to treat me with disrespect, and I haven't said anything, and then the next time they treat me with disrespect and I don't say anything, and this continues on as a cycle and a cycle. Well, really, I'm responsible for the fact that I've allowed that to occur because I haven't honored my sacred no. I haven't protected my inner peace. So think about your own life. Where have you said yes to somebody and been out of accountability and integrity with that person and with yourself? And what would it look like if you were to be honest and just say, you know what? I said yes to you for this, but really I should have said no. Now, it might be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable. When I say yes to somebody, and then I realize that, wait a minute, no, I don't actually want to do this, it is uncomfortable because in that moment, I'm kind of like, I'm caught. And there's this tendency, I think, a lot of times where people will be like, well, I did say yes to this, so I didn't want to do it, but I said yes to it, so I'm going to go ahead and do it now because I said yes. And on the one hand, it could be argued, well, you made an agreement. Yeah, you said what you said. You may not have wanted to have done it, but now you need to follow through. And on the other hand, and this is something that I sit with a lot, there is real power in saying, you know what? I realized that I made an agreement. I'm out of account with you, but I'm in integrity with myself by telling you that no, I actually can't do this. And here's why. And it may make for an uncomfortable conversation. Let's be very clear. Uncomfortable conversations happen sometimes. It have to happen. But the important thing is that you're willing to say yes to yourself and honor yourself on your deepest level. And that means that sometimes you're going to have to say no to other people. And saying no to somebody else and being honest about it is really the way forward. And if you have said yes to someone, but you realize that, what you said yes to wasn't right, then it's important to say no. Now, I see I got a comment here. Can you talk a little bit about celebrating both your and the other person's no, whether that's in relationship or from a brother or a family member? Yeah, sure. So there are times where you can celebrate and honor the no that each person has. And I think that it's actually essential to do that. Celebrating our no's is really important. Celebrating our no's. No. But really, our no, our ability to say no. So how would I do that? Well, for example, talking with a family member and saying to that person, like, you know, there's this really easy tendency for us to say yes to each other because we're family, but I would like to really honor your no and recognize it, and also be able to share my no with you and know that that doesn't have to hurt our relationship, that if anything, it can actually strengthen it. And you can try that. Try saying no to the other person. A lot of times, here's what I discover about family. The way that people say no to family is that they start to avoid their family. They get passive aggressive. So they don't actually have conversations with them. And so they abdicate the responsibility by not showing up because they don't want to put themselves in that situation. But what would it look like if I were to go and connect with somebody and say, I'm going to say no to you, but I love you. And it doesn't change how I feel about you. It's just that I need to honor this and respectfully honor this. And I also want to honor your no. It's okay for you to say no to me. Let's try saying no to each other from a place of love and awareness without putting things on without putting things on us. And I mean, one of the things that I've really gotten better at practicing for myself when I do this in my own life is I look at the agreements that I'm making with somebody and I ask myself, am I making this agreement from a place of integrity with myself, or am I making this agreement just to please them? And if I find that I'm making it from a place of just trying to please them, then I'll own that. I'll take responsibility for it and say, look, I'm making this agreement from the wrong place. I really need to say no to this right now, and I might come back and say yes at a different time, but I need to say no in the moment. Another way to look at it is that, and I think that this isn't said enough, that, I can say no, and in the moment, that's what it is. It's no, but that doesn't mean it's no forever. It just means that in the moment, this is a no. And the reason it's a no is usually because I need to set a boundary for myself. If I don't set the boundary, then I'm going to get walked all over. And if I get walked all over, then I'm going to resent you. And if I resent you, then that is going to hurt my ability to show up for you. And I don't want that. I want to honor you by being able to say no, and honor myself by being able to say no. And I also want to honor your no. So these are things that I think is really important to explore in this relationship. Kind of coming back to the original message, which is about protecting your peace. I mean, look at it this way. Our inner peace is more important than someone else's happiness. Because often happiness is fleeting. So even if I make somebody happy in the moment, that doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way forever. In fact, a lot of times it doesn't. And what I think is really telling is that, and I found myself doing this before. In the past, I would go and I would do stuff to make somebody happy. And then what I would find is that, yeah, in the moment it made them happy, but down the line, they weren't all that happy. And part of it was because they could tell that there was something inauthentic going on. And as they picked up on that, that made them feel like, okay, like I can't really trust his yes, because his yes is not really, it's being done for the purposes of performance. It's not being done from a place of presence. So the way that I approach things now is that I say yes to somebody in my life from a place of purpose and presence. I never want to say it from a place of performance, because when I say it from performance, then I'm not honoring myself or that other person, and I'm not protecting my inner peace. When I'm protecting my inner peace, it means then that when I say yes to someone else, I'm able to say yes from this place of just genuine enjoyment that is really powerful. And I think that that's absolutely essential. So a lot of times I'll go and I might say yes to someone. And if I'm not saying yes to myself first, then it's performance. So one of the things that I like to do is tap into kind of my awareness and say, what are my values here? Why am I saying yes if I'm saying yes? What does it mean if I chose to say no to this person? Because I'm protecting my inner peace. So how can we recognize our internal no and and really recognize it from a place of knowing that it's authentic versus it being a defensive response or a habitual response? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you through a brief practice here. And this is like a somatic practice. And what I want you to do is close your eyes for a moment, put your feet on the floor, ground, and you're going to put your hand on your stomach here, your nervous system, basically, and your other hand up here on your heart. And what I want you to do is take a moment and think about a situation where you recently said yes to someone. And just bring that memory to mind, bring it into your mind as vividly as possible. Here you are in this situation. You've said yes. Someone came to you and they wanted something from you, and you decided to say yes. What does it feel like in your body? Pay attention. Just close your eyes and pay attention into your body itself. Does it feel like there is a yes coming here and like grabbing at your belly? Do you feel like your belly's being grabbed at, like something's trying to be taken away? Or do you feel some other kind of internal response, some kind of flinching or something else? Or do you feel like there's something going on up here, for example? And it could be anywhere in your body. I'm just using these two examples here. But pay attention to your body. What's the inner response? Your body knows what's going on better than you do. And it's going to tell you. If you find yourself recalling a situation and you find yourself kind of flinching, that's an indication right there that a no probably should have happened. And that is the internal no. And I'll even use an example. I'll use an example from this recent weekend. I was on this weekend where I was staffing with other men. And at one point I had this man come up to me and said to me, "Hey, I think you should, because I'm doing some social media stuff for this organization." He's like, "I think you should do X, Y, and Z." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I appreciate the suggestion." And he kept pressing for it. And the more he pressed it, the more it made me feel like I needed to protect myself. So what I did is I kind of withdrew and I got a bit more distant from him physically, but also more emotionally. I was like, and what I did finally is I said to him, like, "Look, I've had to go through a process to get access to the social media for this organization, and there are very specific guidelines and rules, and I'm going to honor those. I made a commitment to honor those agreements in order to be able to do what I want to do here. And so your suggestion, while it's well-intentioned, is not appropriate." And he paused and I kind of shut him down a bit. Later on, he came back and apologized. And I said to him again, I said, I said to him, I was just very clear. I'm like, "I accept your apology and it wasn't appropriate. I appreciate that you were well-intentioned, but it wasn't appropriate." So what I did is I really honored my agreement that I had made. And part of it was paying attention to my body, paying attention to the way that my body responded. So think about your own situation. Where did you say yes to someone because you were trying to please them or make them happy? And what you really needed to do was say no. Your body knows better than you do. And so if you find yourself flinching or moving back from somebody or responding in some other manner and it doesn't feel like there's this internal sense of yes, honor that. And I get that no comes with an edge. No is a confrontation. And let's be honest here, sometimes we have to step into confrontation. That doesn't mean we have to get into a huge fight or anything like that, but it does mean that we have to be very firm about asserting our boundaries and saying no. If someone's doing something and it's not what you want, it is worth it to say no to that person. And it may mean that it may mean that that person won't accept you or won't approve of you or whatever, and that you might face some rejection. That is a potential consequence. But ask yourself this: do you want to continue to reject yourself just to get someone's very conditional approval, or do you want to honor yourself and can you honor yourself and accept that that person might walk out of your life? Because that's really the thing to really sit with. Can I allow and accept that saying no to someone may actually be really empowering for me. And yes, it may cost a relationship. And was that relationship really healthy in the first place? If that's the consequence that I immediately come to, it's probably an indicator right there that there's something out of alignment with that relationship anyway. So that's some food for thoughts for you. And if you are a man who is watching this and you struggle with saying no, first of all, know that you're not alone. There are other men who struggle with this. I used to struggle with this. I've gotten a lot better at it, and it took work. And if you need help with that, I am more than happy to reach out and connect with you and help you learn how to say no and to practice it. I have very specific practices that I use to help you learn how to say no. I've talked a little bit about them here, but we go into a lot more depth when we work together one-on-one. And really what I want to offer to you is that at the end of the day, your no is really about you validating yourself and saying, I have worth. I have enough worth that I can say no to somebody else and trust myself in the saying of that no. Thank you for the questions. And thank you for watching this if you're live. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and click the bell notifications to get notified when I upload a video. If you're on Substack, make sure you subscribe as well. Comment on this. Feel free to restack it. If this is something that landed with you, share it with other people. And do it from a place of saying yes to yourself, not from me. All right. Take care and have a